Today I want to talk about a few topics that are of interest to some of you. First, partnership applications. Now look, if you're in a partnership relationship, as soon as you enter that relationship, you must inform Immigration New Zealand. Don't wait 6 months, 8 months to get around to doing it, because it can impact on a future application and make it take a lot longer. And if you've had a change in the nature of your partnership, you must also immediately inform New Zealand Immigration. Because the reality with partnerships is that Immigration New Zealand are very suspicious these days of a lot of partnerships. I'm not being racist here, but especially relationships involving a national of India. And frankly, being involved with many of them, I don't blame Immigration New Zealand for being highly suspicious. You need to get your evidence together. The moment you move in together, get all your utility bills into shared accounts, get your bank account updated, shared accounts, start making contact with your neighbours so they can confirm that you moved in at a certain date. Make sure your rental agreement has got both your names on it. The success and the speed of success of a partnership application is pretty much solely dependent on the evidence. So work hard on that. And photos. Having 10,000 photographs undated doesn't really add anything to your application. If you're going to take photos, try and take them at events where they can be dated. You know, a rugby game, a parade, things like that. Go down by the cruise ships when they come in, you know, the date they come in. So documentation is what's really important. You can't have too much in partnerships. Now, a marriage certificate proves you're married, but it does not prove that you're living together, okay? And a lot of people think that's a done deal, provide a marriage certificate, it's all over. It's not. You need supporting evidence. Another topic, interviews. Immigration New Zealand will almost certainly interview you if you are applying for a residence visa under skilled migrant category. They'll either interview you and or your boss. This is what you need to do. If the immigration officer turns up at work, or more commonly phones you up, just tell the officer, look, I'm really happy to be interviewed, however, I'm aware that I'm entitled to have my representative present at any interview. So can you call please my representative to arrange a time? I can't emphasize more strongly on this topic. Do not give in to pressure from an immigration officer to be interviewed when they call you on the telephone, okay? Because you're not prepared for it, you're probably shocked, you're worried, scared, but more importantly, you need to have your representative present to make sure that the interview is done fairly and properly, and especially important, your representative should record that interview. You must record the interview. Don't listen to the immigration officer who says you're not allowed to. Of course you are. And the reason for doing that is if you don't do it, the record of that interview is whatever the officer says. Okay? Now for your boss, if they call your boss up, you do not want your boss talking to the immigration officer, answering questions. The worst bosses in these cases are those who think they know everything and they'll just talk, and quite often I've seen them talk so much they've cut your throat in terms of getting approved. What you want your boss to say, look, I'm happy to answer any question you have, put them in writing. Now these days it usually is in writing, but just in case it's not, do not let your boss answer questions over the telephone or even face to face. Tell them, put it in writing, officer, and I'll get around to it. Now, interim visas. Many of you will get interim visa. You applied for another working visa or visitor visa, student visa, and your current visa expires and they haven't finished processing it. Immigration New Zealand issues you an interim visa. what we've seen is that the whole process is often very unfair. In fact, I believe it's unlawful. The interim visa is issued for 6 months. Immigration say it can only be done once, you can't get it renewed. They say that's the law. That is a load of crock, okay? Now, I've written to Minister Lees Galloway and pointed out to him on the second reading of the immigration bill, and let me read it to you. The government minister's speech was, let me quote, "The bill introduces a new concept in allowing interim visas to be granted for the purpose of maintaining a foreign national's lawful status in New Zealand, where he or she has applied for a further visa and his or her application is under consideration. That is fair, reasonable and proper. It is a positive change that should benefit foreign nationals who wish to extend their stay in New Zealand." And I agree, that's what it should be. An interim visa should be issued for the duration until Immigration New Zealand actually gets around to make a decision on your visa. But that's not what happened. Now, I believe those words from the National Party actually back then, that interim visas will be granted for a duration that will be long enough to allow a decision on the application to be made. Section 80 of the Immigration Act reflects the intent of Parliament, because Section 80 allows an interim visa to be granted for the purpose of maintaining the lawful status in New Zealand of an applicant while their application is being considered. Section 80 does not restrict the duration of an interim visa, and it does not restrict the number of times an interim visa may be granted. It's just there to allow your application to be processed. Therefore, I believe, and I told the Minister this in writing, that Section 80 confirms the expectation that interim visas will be granted for a duration long enough to allow a decision to be made. I wrote to the Minister and said I believe the current policy that's been put in place is unlawful. However, I just received a reply back last week from the Minister, which he's got his officers, officials to write his reply, and they claim that under Section 22 of the Immigration Act, the Minister is allowed to do that. I believe the Minister is wrong, and I will intend to follow it up. And it's just morally wrong. I had a client recently, they were granted an interim visa for 6 months. They didn't even allocate a case officer till the 7th month. They then tell my client, you have to go home. Now, that guarantees my client will fail, because my client was an entrepreneur applicant applying for an extension of the work visa. That means they go home, their business fails. So sad, too bad, you're out of here. That is just unethical, immoral, and, my opinion, unlawful. Anyway, stay tuned on this one, I'll get back to you. I'm writing back to the Minister on it. Now, India driver's licenses. I'm picking on India today. The government is cracking down on Indian driver's licenses, and with good reason. The fact that you have an Indian driver's license and you've got a New Zealand driver's license, through that, Immigration New Zealand will go and verify that back in India. And the reason for that is, even if your driver's license appears in the national database, it's not a guarantee that it was actually entered properly or lawfully when you claim to have gotten it. Now, it's a difficult one for Immigration New Zealand, because that is the Indian national database, and so it's the sovereignty of India being challenged by the sovereignty of New Zealand, I guess. But be aware, if you have an Indian driver's license and you use that driver's license to get a New Zealand driver's license, you better make sure that you didn't buy that driver's license. So that's just a heads up. Steve Webster is in the media today. Mr. Webster lives in Nelson. He's a firefighter. He's had a lot of publicity. He was involved in the forest fires down there as a volunteer, and he had a petition of 53,000 people protesting, demanding to be granted residence. Mr. Webster and his wife came here on entrepreneur work visa, trying to get residency under the entrepreneur category. They had a florist business, which evidently hasn't been particularly successful. And I don't know much about the case other than what I've read in the media, but it appears the decision by Immigration New Zealand to decline his application for residency on the basis of the business is probably the correct one. It appears that the business wasn't successful. But now there's massive criticism against the minister for denying the family. They've been here for 7 years, and I can understand the emotion involved in that, and it went sky high when he was fighting those forest fires. And the minister's been roundly criticised for not granting a residence because, hey, the man's fighting forest fires. Unfortunately, look, I have to say I agree with the minister. You can't just give out residency because someone's a volunteer firefighter. I mean, I appreciate what Mr. Webster's done, but the last thing actually we need is every overstay in the country joining the volunteer firefighting force. Hopefully Mr. Webster can sort it out. He's been granted visas to continue staying to work here. Final thing, new policy announcements. It's like every week I get people coming in here asking me to tell them about the new policy announcements. They've heard these things from other advisors. Let's get one thing clear. I have no idea what policies Minister Lees-Galloway is going to introduce or when he's going to introduce them. He doesn't tell me, and he doesn't tell any other agent as well, advisor. So whenever someone tells you they know about the new policies, they're lying to you, okay? When they come in, I'll deal with it. And I suggest you deal with it as well. We all know there's going to be changes, but what they are, when they are, no idea. Oh, and the last thing, Zoom. TDA is now a Zoom company. That's Z-O-O-M, for those of you not familiar with Zoom. It's a wonderful video conferencing tool. You can have people anywhere in the world, all online at the same time. You can share your screen, they can share their screen. So you can see documents, you can change documents. And we're using that more and more to interview our clients. So for example, we're here in Auckland, a client, we can interview them whether they're in Christchurch or Hastings or somewhere else. And that's got to be good because it's a long drive from those places to get here. So check our website. If you need to be interviewed and you want to talk to us about your situation, we can do it on Zoom. So hopefully there were some useful bits there for you, and we'll do another session next week.